The crack of gunfire rang out across the scorching training grounds at Fort Liberty, a renowned military base known for pushing snipers to their absolute limits. Elite marksmen from all branches of the military lined up in perfect formation, their faces weathered by years of combat. Among them stood Emily Hart, 24 years old, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to calculate every inch of distance. Even when she wasn't looking through a scope, she wasn't supposed to be there. Her presence stirred whispers and sidelong glances from the veterans, their doubts clear as day. "What's she doing here?" "Playing soldier," one veteran muttered, his voice carrying over the field, triggering laughs from the others. Emily's jaw tightened, but her stance remained perfect, unwavering. She'd heard worse in the 6 months she had spent at the base. Today, she would prove herself, or she would leave everything behind trying. Fort Liberty housed the country's toughest sniper training program, nestled in a brutal desert landscape where temperatures regularly soared above 110 degrees. The base stretched for miles, filled with concrete buildings, shooting ranges, and facilities designed to break even the toughest soldiers. It was here that the finest snipers were forged, a place where only the most determined could survive. Emily wasn't raised in a military family. Her father ran a small hardware store in a rural town, and her mother taught high school math. Yet, from the moment Emily first picked up a hunting rifle as a child, it was clear she had a rare gift. By 16, she was outperforming grown men at local shooting competitions. By 20, she had broken several state records. The military seemed like the only place that would truly test her skills. But at Fort Liberty, no one seemed to think she belonged. The competition at Fort Liberty was fierce, and as the hours ticked by, the tension on the range grew. Elite snipers, hardened by combat, took their turns, each demonstrating skills honed through years of experience. Among them was Sergeant Jason Carter, whose weathered face revealed the weight of 3 combat tours. He stepped up to the firing line, calm and unshaken. The target, set at 800 yards, seemed impossible. But Carter was unfazed. His focus was unwavering as he adjusted his scope, calculated the wind speed, and steadied his breath. "You've seen this before, haven't you?" a senior officer whispered to Emily, who was observing quietly from the sidelines. "This man can hit a target at 2 miles with his eyes closed." Emily watched intently, mentally recording every detail of Carter's technique. The way he adjusted his breathing, his careful alignment, and his calculated precision fascinated her. It wasn't just about the shot. It was about the process. She mimicked his movements in her mind, her fingers itching to pick up her own rifle. After Carter's shot hit the target dead center, a round of applause rippled through the group of observers. Emily wasn't just watching. She was learning, absorbing every piece of information. As Carter stepped away from the line, Emily felt the familiar urge to prove herself. She knew that the odds were stacked against her, that some of the men on the field didn't believe she had what it took. But that didn't matter. Emily wasn't here to blend in. She was here to shatter expectations. But what she didn't know was that by the end of the day, she would do exactly that. Emily would not only match the veterans' skills, but would surpass them in a way no one could have predicted, forever changing the way people looked at her and at what a sniper could do. As the day wore on, the competition at Fort Liberty reached its peak. Veteran snipers had taken their turns, each showing extraordinary skill. But now, something unexpected was about to unfold. The final challenge of the day wasn't just any ordinary test of precision. It was an opportunity to demonstrate mastery with a weapon few had ever even touched: the Snipex Alligator. This Ukrainian anti-material rifle had a reputation for its raw power and almost mythical accuracy. Capable of hitting targets over 500 yards away, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. But most of the snipers, seasoned by years of experience, were hesitant. The distance was extreme, and the weapon, known for its brutal recoil, was enough to make even the most confident pause. Master Sergeant Robert Stone, a decorated sniper with countless deployments, stepped forward and scoffed at the challenge. "You really think any of us can hit a target from 700 yards with this?" he muttered, eyeing the massive rifle. A few chuckles echoed from the group, but Colonel Harrison, the commanding officer overseeing the training, was undeterred. "Who's ready to give it a shot?" he asked, scanning the field. Silence followed. Then, a voice cut through the quiet. "I'll do it." Emily Hart, who had been an observer up until now, stepped forward. Her calm demeanor was a sharp contrast to the disbelief in the eyes of the other snipers. Murmurs spread like wildfire as the veterans exchanged skeptical glances. Was this a joke? Emily, however, remained focused. Her eyes locked on the weapon that seemed too large for her frame. With a steady hand, she approached the Snipex Alligator. The wind, unpredictable and fierce, would test her precision, but Emily was unshaken. Her mind raced through the calculations: distance, wind speed, temperature, all the elements that would affect the bullet's trajectory. As she positioned herself behind the rifle, the murmurs from the crowd faded into silence. She was no longer just an observer. She was about to make history. When the shot rang out, it echoed across the range, and for a long moment, no one moved. The target, a mere speck against the desert backdrop, was still visible through the scopes. But then, the confirmation came. Hit confirmed. The impossible had been done. Emily Hart had shattered expectations, and in one moment, she had secured her place in sniper history. The sound of the massive rifle's recoil still reverberated in the air as Emily Hart stood in stunned silence. She had just made the impossible shot, hitting a target 700 yards away, with a weapon no one else dared to use. The range, previously filled with murmurs and whispered doubts, now buzzed with disbelief. Some of the snipers stared at her in awe, others in shock, but none could deny the fact that she had just set a new benchmark in military sniper history. For the first time that day, the veterans had been humbled. Master Sergeant Robert Stone, who had mocked the challenge only moments ago, was the first to recover. "Beginner's luck," he muttered under his breath, but even he knew there was no denying the skill it took to land a perfect shot at that range. Still, a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips as he watched Emily rise from behind the rifle, her composure unshaken. It was clear that this moment would not be forgotten, but whether it would be accepted was still in question. Colonel Harrison, a man whose gaze had seen it all, stood with a quiet pride as he observed Emily's flawless execution. The silence that followed the shot spoke volumes. He turned to the gathered snipers, his voice cutting through the tension. "This is something extraordinary." It wasn't just the technical prowess of hitting a target at such an extreme distance. It was the audacity to attempt what everyone thought impossible. Emily, despite the chaos that followed her achievement, remained calm. Her heart raced, but her training kicked in. She knew that one shot didn't define her. It was what she did next that would prove she was more than just a fluke. As the murmurs continued around her, the weight of their skepticism hung in the air, but she wasn't about to let it break her focus. She had already proven herself once. Now, it was time to do it again. But what none of the observers knew, what none of the veterans suspected, was that Emily's journey had only just begun. She wasn't just here to break records. She was here to change the game. The atmosphere at Fort Liberty shifted as Emily Hart's achievement spread like wildfire across the base. Her perfect shot, made with the massive Snipex Alligator rifle, had done more than just break a record. It had shattered perceptions. And now, she was the center of attention. Whispers filled the air, some full of admiration, others steeped in skepticism. The veterans who had once ridiculed her now watched her with a mix of awe and disbelief. Among them, Master Sergeant Robert Stone was the most vocal. "Beginner's luck," he insisted to anyone who would listen. "Let's see her do it again." Emily didn't need to prove anything to him, or to anyone, but the challenge hung in the air like a thick fog. And deep down, she knew she had one more shot to solidify her place among the military's elite snipers. Colonel Harrison, who had witnessed many incredible feats over his career, studied her carefully. "You understand the pressure, recruit," he said calmly, his voice steady as always. "One shot is impressive. 2, that's a different story." Emily nodded, knowing that the second attempt would either solidify her legend or prove the critics right. The Snipex Alligator was reloaded and positioned once more. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, the wind started to shift, making the shot even more difficult in Emily's mind. However, was laser-focused. She took a deep breath, blocking out the murmurs of the crowd and the sharp eyes of her peers. This wasn't about luck. This was about mastery. With deliberate precision, she adjusted her stance, calculated the wind speed, and aligned her sights once more on the distant target. The immense rifle felt like an extension of her body. As she squeezed the trigger, the force of the shot slammed her backward, but she remained steady. The target was still too far to see with the naked eye, but the confirmation came almost instantly. Hit confirmed, the range fell into stunned silence, the weight of her accomplishment sinking in. Emily had done it again, another perfect shot, under even harsher conditions. No longer just a recruit, she had now earned the respect of every sniper on the range. The critics were silenced, and the path forward was clear. Emily Hart wasn't here to blend in. She was here to lead. The next morning, Emily Hart stood outside Colonel Harrison's office, her uniform crisp and her posture impeccable. The whispers of the previous day's events still echoed through the base, some filled with admiration, others with outright hostility. She had gone from being an unknown recruit to a living legend overnight. But that kind of attention came with its own set of challenges. As Emily stood in front of the imposing do, when Colonel Harrison's voice called for her to enter, Emily walked into the room with a sense of calm. Despite the turmoil brewing inside, the conference table before her was occupied by a group of high-ranking officers, including Brigadier General Anderson, the commanding officer of Fort Liberty. Their presence alone told Emily this meeting was more than just a routine follow-up. "Recruit Hart," General Anderson began, his voice steady but carrying a hint of surprise. "Your performance yesterday has raised some questions." He paused, studying her with sharp eyes. "Your file says you've—" Emily met his gaze, unwavering. "Sir, my record is accurate," she replied, her voice steady. She wasn't about to apologize for her ability. She had earned every bit of the respect she'd garnered, and she wasn't going to. Colonel Harrison spoke up, sliding a folder across the table. "What we discovered last night, General, is that Emily here has more than just basic training. She's a 3-time civilian long-range shooting champion under her maiden name, and she holds the unofficial civilian record for extreme precision shooting." The officers exchanged glances, processing the new information. "You deliberately concealed this expertise?" General Anderson asked, his tone sharp. Emily nodded. The room fell silent as the officers absorbed the revelation. "This wasn't just a case of beginner's luck. Emily Hart." General Anderson leaned forward. "Your skills are invaluable to us. However, your sudden rise has also created a challenge. Many will see this as favoritism as of now. You're being removed from regular recruit status and fast-tracked into specialized training for the Scout Sniper program." The room fell silent, and Emily, though surprised, felt a surge of determination. She had proven herself once, and now she was ready to prove she could handle the next step, no matter the resistance she would face from those who doubted her. As the sun set over Fort Liberty, Emily Hart stood at the edge of the training grounds, her mind buzzing with the events of the day. The whispers had only intensified after the announcement of her promotion, and now she was walking a fine line between respect and resentment. The other snipers, some of them veterans with years of experience, were still processing the fact that a relative newcomer had shattered their expectations and set new records. While some respected her skill, Master Sergeant Robert Stone was one of the most vocal detractors. He had never been one to accept defeat gracefully, especially not at the hands of someone he considered a rookie. "This doesn't change anything," he muttered under his breath as Emily passed by. "You're still just playing soldier." His words stung, but Emily didn't flinch. As she made her way to the mess hall, Staff Sergeant Marcus Green, a man who had quietly observed her progress, approached. "Heard the news," he said quietly, offering a sly. Emily raised. "Petrov's been making noise all morning," Green explained. "He's not going to let this go. He'll make sure to prove yesterday was a fluke." Emily didn't respond immediately, but as she collected her meal and sat down, she felt the weight of the challenge ahead. Petrov's ego had been shattered by her achievement, and now he was determined to reclaim his reputation at her expense. But Emily wasn't concerned. She knew that the road to true respect was paved with consistency, and she had already proven what she was capable of. As Green walked away, Emily took a deep breath. Petrov would come after her, but she would be ready. She wasn't just here to prove herself in one moment. She was here to stay, and no matter how many challenges were thrown her way, Emily Hart would rise to meet them one shot at a time. The next phase of Emily Hart's journey was about to test her like never before. Having outshot seasoned veterans and earned a reputation as one of the most gifted marksmen in the program, Emily was now facing the greatest challenge of all, proving her abilities in the eyes of those who still didn't believe in her. Master Sergeant Robert Stone, bitter from the previous day's defeat, was determined to see Emily fail. He had spent years at the top, and the idea that someone with less than a year of experience could surpass him stung deeply. But Emily was undeterred. She had been underestimated her entire life, and she knew B. Today's exercise was simple in concept, but brutal in execution. Infiltration, target acquisition, and precision elimination. The team was to navigate through rugged terrain, identify assigned targets among the decoys, and eliminate them with pinpoint accuracy. The stakes were high, and the tension between the men and Emily was palpable. As the teams began to deploy, Emily found herself paired once again with Staff Sergeant Marcus Green. Despite the tension, Green had become the team's path was treacherous, with limited cover and a difficult set of targets. But Emily moved with ease, navigating the landscape with the fluidity of a seasoned pro. Green watched in silent awe as she led them through Tuxu. "My grandfather was a scout sniper during the Vietnam War," Emily replied, her voice calm but strong. "He taught me more than just how to shoot. He taught me how to..." As they reached their firing position, Emily's sharp eye quickly identified the target's 3 moving figures scattered across the terrain. Without hesitation, she set up her rifle, her focus laser sharp. "I'll take the moving targets," she said, and with perfect precision, Green's amazement grew as he took his own shots and matched her accuracy. The team completed the exercise in record time, with Petrov, who had been overseeing the operation, glaring at the results. Emily's performance had shattered expectations once again, not just because of her skill, but because she had done it under the intense scrutiny of everyone around her. This wasn't just about one mission or one shot. This was about Emily proving, once and for all, that she belonged at the top. By the time Emily Hart's name echoed through the halls of Fort Liberty, she had already proven herself in ways few could have imagined. From the moment she stepped onto the range, facing the harsh criticism of her peers, to the moment she fired that unprecedented shot with the Snipex Alligator, Emily had done what many thought impossible. She had shattered the stereotype of what a sniper could be, not just in skill but in resilience. With each challenge, she faced not just the yet. As the whispers turned into respect, Emily knew her battle was far from over. The snipers who had once sneered at her success now found themselves questioning their place in the hierarchy. The veterans, led by the scornful Master Sergeant Robert Stone, could no longer deny her abilities, though some continued to fight against the rise of a new generation. For Emily, it wasn't just about the medals or the accolades. As she entered the elite ranks of the scout snipers, her place was no longer in question. Yet with every new challenge, every new target, the journey she had set out on so many months ago took on greater meaning. She was no longer the underdog. She was a force in her own right, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The road to the top had been paved with doubt and skepticism, but Emily Hart had turned every obstacle into a stepping stone toward greatness. In doing so, she had proven that it was never about the path others expected her to take. It was about carving her own and leaving a legacy that would be ours in the end. Emily Hart had done more than break records. She had reshaped the very definition of what it meant to be a sniper. She had earned respect, not through the weapons she carried, but through the strength she had found within herself. And as she looked out over the horizon, with the weight of the future ahead, she knew this was just the beginning. Wait a second. Before you leave this video, where are you watching from in the world? Please leave the name of your city or country in the comments. We want to know how far this story has spread, and if this surprising twist caught you off guard. Don't forget to hit like to let us know you enjoyed it. That was intense. But don't leave just yet. There's even more exciting content ahead. Click on this video right now to watch another underdog soldier receive the respect they truly deserve. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on more inspiring stories. If you think something's missing, we'd really appreciate it if you could add your thoughts to make this video even better.